Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 35. And this is actually the game week where I'm going to wildcard myself, and I think it's a pretty important game week for a lot of people. A lot of people have used or saved their wildcard for this game week, so it's pretty imperative to have the best possible team from this game week onwards for the end of the season. We basically have 4 game weeks left, and you can make up a lot of rank in those 4 game weeks, especially if you have your bench boost left as well in Game Week 37. And that's what I have, and that's what I'm going to base this draft on. Obviously, if you don't have the bench boost still available, you can be a bit more flexible with your team. You can have less players for double Game Week 37, and that might actually benefit your team over the long haul, because the bench boost is sort of like a trap sometimes. But I do think there are enough good teams with good double Game Week fixtures for this to be a really good draft with a good bench boost in Game Week 37 as well. But yeah, if you haven't seen this this YouTube channel before, basically, I do this every week, hence the name Weekly Wildcard Draft. I do this every single week, even if it's not a particularly good game week to wildcard, but this game week I think is a really good game week to wildcard. And the draft for me is presented a bit differently than most other people's wildcard videos. I'm going to make a draft from 1 through 15 with my squad of 15 players. The number one pick, the number one player that I'm going to present to you is going to be the player that I think is the most important player to have currently in FPL. And then the 15th pick is the guy that I'm the most unsure about having in my team. I actually switched the 15th pick right before I started making this video, because I'm still not sure about this player and several other players in this team who are down the pecking order in terms of this draft. But let's just get into it with number one pick, which is always going to be the same player. That is going to be Cole Palmer, playing for Cole Palmer FC. We saw him, or we saw Chelsea now against Arsenal without Cole Palmer in the team, and it was an abject disaster. And Palmer's just been fantastic this season. Even with Chelsea being so bad that they have been this season, Palmer has been the shining light. He's been potentially the player of the season. I don't really dare to wish or dare to think about what would happen with Chelsea if they didn't have Cole Palmer. He's been an amazing player. Huge loss for City as well, for anyone that thinks that they are fine with selling him for like 40 million. Big mistake, I think, on their part, and he's just been proving them wrong every single time. Getting the game time and now scoring so many goals, getting so many assists, and being basically the best player in FPL this season for a starting price of 5.0, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, he's number one pick. 2 double game weeks, obviously, for Chelsea, which is another huge plus for anyone. As if Palmer needed even more reasons to be a good pick. Even if he had a single game week in Game Week 35, I still would have him number one, because he's just that good of a player, basically. So he's the number one pick. Pretty easy choice. Number 2, Foden is also a pretty easy choice. Another player that has had another huge or had a breakout season. Obviously the former teammate of Palmer, and now maybe that's the upside to selling Palmer, I guess, for City. It's the fact that Foden has been playing more. He's been getting that consistent playing time, and he's been delivering on all fronts basically all season. There is some slight doubts about his availability in terms of injury and stuff. I don't think it's going to be a major injury anyways. I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be fine for next game week, and even if it's not fine for this next game week, we do have a good enough bench for Game Week 35 that we don't really need him straight away, and we can have him for those last 3 fixtures. But I think it's going to be fine, and I think it's going to be one of the most important players to have in FPL. Still a pretty cheap price. And he plays for the best team in the league, presumably in Man City, who have terrific fixtures, as you can see. Nottingham Forest away, Wolves at home, double game week with Fulham and Spurs, 2 teams that City could easily destroy, and then West Ham in the final game week at home, which is also another really, really good game to have, as we saw with West Ham against Crystal Palace just now. So yeah, Foden comes in at number 2, really easy pick there as well. Number 3, Heung-min Son. Had him as number 11 last week, and that's because that was obviously Game Week 34, where he didn't have a game even. But now he's gone past his blank game weeks, and he has 2 double game weeks coming up. It's not the best double game weeks, but it is also Spurs, who are really attacking, despite who they are facing. They're going to play attacking football. So a double game week against Arsenal and Chelsea is pretty good for Spurs attacking assets, and I think Son is the standout by far. Asset from Spurs. There is someone like Brennan Johnson, for example, who's also pretty good, but Son is just more safe when it comes to minutes. He's on penalties, and he's a more prolific goal scorer as well for Spurs than Brennan Johnson is. So yeah, Son, pretty easy pick at number 3 with 2 double game weeks, especially game week 37 and 38 is really, really good for Son. I think he's going to be potentially the best captaincy option in both those game weeks. Palmer might have something to say in game week 37. Haaland might have something to say in game week 37, but he's going to be a really terrific asset for those 2 final game weeks as well, Heung-min Son. So yeah, terrific player. Obviously hasn't been the best lately, but I also expect him and Spurs to fight until the bitter end to try to get that 4th place spot in the league and get Champions League next season, because that's going to be huge for them if they can get that. So Son comes in at number 3. Number 4, we have Alexander Isak, dropped down 2 spots since last time, basically because there is one small doubt about Isak going forward. He's obviously been in terrific form. They have amazing fixtures, a double game week in 37. Everything is looking nice. But Callum Wilson is coming back from injury, and he has basically taken a chunk of the minutes from Isak previously in the season and last season as well. So that could happen again, potentially. Maybe Isak, I think he will still start pretty much every single game, but he might get subbed off around 60 minutes, 70 minutes now to make room for Callum Wilson, who has been a really nice impact sub as well last few years. Remember, this time last season, Isak was in decent form, but Callum Wilson was in even better form and actually outscored Isak towards the end of the season. So that could happen again, but I still think Isak is just in such good form now. The Sheffield United home game, he is most likely going to be starting as well, depending on what happens with Wilson in this double game week fixture that we haven't seen. But yeah, Isak is still a terrific pick. Obviously, Newcastle, you want to triple up with Newcastle. I think that's the main team to target other than City. Even Chelsea and Spurs, I don't really like their double game week in 35 that much, apart from facing each other. But both teams obviously can't score that many points in that one game between each other. So I think Newcastle is basically like the fourth most important, or one of the top 4 most important teams, as you can see here, represented by Palmer, Foden, Son, and Isak. These 4 teams are the teams to target currently, and these are the 4 best players from those 4 teams, and that's why they're the top 4 picks, basically. Isak's still tremendous, but there is that Callum Wilson thing that's making me have some slight doubts, because Callum Wilson has haunted me before in FPL, and I hope I can finally jump on that Isak train and actually get some points now. Most people are going to get Isak now. He's already pretty highly owned by those that free hit it in 34 especially. And that's for good reason, because he's such a terrific player. So I really want to have him for the end of the season and hope that he delivers as he has done for the past few game weeks. Number 5, we have Erling Haaland. And again, injury issues notwithstanding, we don't really know yet if he's going to be fit to play for the next few game weeks, potentially. If we get some news that he's out for like 2 or 3 game weeks, especially the game week 37 game week, then obviously I would sell him, and that would make several changes to this wildcard team, because he is super expensive still. So that could change the outlook of this draft. I might also just get Alvarez if that's the case. If Haaland is out for the entirety of the season, for example, I might just get Alvarez as the replacement there. But I'm not 100% sure about Alvarez starting every game still, even if Haaland is out, because we've seen that in the past, that it doesn't necessarily start every game. But that would be the easy replacement for Haaland, and that would give me so much more money to spend for the rest of the team as well. But for now, if Haaland is ready to play, if he's back, especially for game week 36 onwards, because game week 35 isn't really the worst game week to have a benching issue anyway, because we have so many players with good fixtures that game week. If he's ready to play from game week 36 onwards, he's going to be absolutely fantastic. Like I said, game week 37, he might be the best captaincy choice out of them all. Palmer and Son might have something to say when it comes to that, but yeah, Haaland's going to be a terrific player for that game week as well. And then final game week against West Ham, where he's probably going to chase the top scoring record in the Premier League as well, becoming the top scorer for the 2nd season in a row in the Premier League. He's going to be another really good captaincy shout that week, probably, unless City have won the league already. But I don't really think that might be the case, because I think Arsenal will put the pressure on City until the end. So that's going to be interesting to watch as well. But Haaland, for sure, going to be in this draft. I think he's a really good player. City, obviously, the main team to target, in my opinion, because they have so many good fixtures. They are in such good form, and they also have basically the best players in the league this season. So yeah, Haaland comes in number 5. At number 6, we have a third City attacker, that is Kevin De Bruyne. I think Game Week 34 has proven to us that if you have a really good offensive team, you want to triple up on their attack, basically. We've seen that with Crystal Palace, we've seen that with Arsenal in Game Week 34, and Man City are potentially an even higher scoring team than those 2 teams as well. So I really want to triple up with City attackers. I don't really like any other defenders that much. Ederson is a really boring pick. Guardiola, if he plays every game, he's a really good pick, but there's always that doubt about any City defender. Is he going to play each and every game? So I just want to triple up with the City attackers, and I also feel like this is a nice differential for anyone on the wildcard this week. Not that many people have Foden, Haaland, and will be able to get De Bruyne as well. And I think De Bruyne will have some really nice scores. He's been really good lately. Even that game where he blanked, he had like 1.16 or something expected goal involvement in that game. Really unlucky not to get any points in that game against Luton. So De Bruyne is a terrific pick, and especially if Haaland is out as well, he's going to be an even more popular pick. But I think De Bruyne is a pretty certain player in my team as of this moment in time. There are a lot of good midfielders, so that's the one downside here. You have to drop someone. Obviously, there's only one midfield spot left at this point. You can have Gordon, you can have Brendan Johnson, you can have Bruno Fernandes. There's a lot of really good picks in that midfield spot. So It's by no means an easy choice, but for me, it's pretty easy because I think I just want to chase the upside. And De Bruyne has so much upside. He's going to play most games, especially if City are competing for the title. He's going to play every single game pretty much. So it even gets me pretty close to Salah in Game Week 38. If City win the league by Game Week 38, for example, I do have a close, like a player that's close in value to Salah, which means I could get Salah for that final game week potentially, which could be the final game for Salah as well. So I could have that in mind for Game Week 38 as well. But De Bruyne, until that point, Game Week 35, Game Week 36, Game Week 37, I think he's going to be a terrific pick. And I just really want to triple up on the City attack because they are so good currently. Number 7, we have Gabriel Magalhaes. Speaking of backing really good parts of a team, Arsenal have been the best defense in the league, and that's why I think Gabriel, even though he doesn't have a single double game week, basically, for the end of the season, I still think he's a great choice. Obviously, Ben White would also be another terrific choice. We just saw him get a huge haul this past game week. 34, 26 points he got in that game week, with 2 goals even for Arsenal. So Ben White might be a better pick, but I do have a lot of value in Gabriel tied up already, and I think it's also slightly more nailed than Ben White, but Ben White is going to play every single game. I think that's actually a bit overplayed, the fact that Ben White is a rotation risk, because Tomiyasu and Kivior might play, and Zinchenko might play. I think Ben White is going to play most in every game, but I do have money tied up into Gabriel already. I know a lot of people do already as well. So if you're like me, you probably want to keep Gabriel, but you might also want to double up on the Arsenal defense because it's just so really good. It's just so really good. Yeah, it's just so damn good is what I was about to say. So you might want to double up, but I think Gabriel, with the value thing in mind, he's a bit cheaper still. Even if you are buying a new Arsenal defender now, you don't have Gabriel or White already. Gabriel is still a bit cheaper than Ben White, and he has that potential to score goals as well. So yeah, Gabriel comes in at number 7, and I think Arsenal defense is a pretty nice way to go, even though they don't have a double game week. Number 8, we have Kieran Trippier, and again, I have to have the caveat of him being fully healthy or not. Don't know yet if he's going to play against Crystal Palace, but if he's on the bench for that game especially, and if he gets some minutes against Crystal Palace in that game, I think for certain he's going to be in my wildcard team. Last time he played against Sheffield United, he got 18 points. He had several nice assists. I think he had 3 assists and a clean sheet or something like that. Terrific score from Trippier. He can do that same thing again. He has such high upside if he's ready to play. Plays for a pretty resurgent Newcastle defense as well. They've been keeping a lot of clean sheets lately. And Trippier is that amazing attacking player as well for FPL points. So I think if Trippier is ready to play, I think he is the best or the best Newcastle defensive player to have. So despite being a pretty high price, I think I would be able to get him into the team, and I think it would be terrific. Obviously, if he's injured, it's pretty easy to go to someone like Fabian Schär or even Dan Burn if you want to double up on the Newcastle defense. I haven't done that myself because I have a final Newcastle player that I really want in this team as well. But Trippier, I think, just has so much upside if he's ready to play. But that's the big thing here. He needs to be healthy to play. But if he's not healthy to play, I might just have some money in the bank as well and save him for Game Week 37 to get him in for the double game week there as well, potentially. But I do really want him for this game against Sheffield United if he's ready to play. That's the big hope for me because Sheffield United at home is going to be a terrific game for Newcastle, and I want the 3 best Newcastle players for that game in particular. So yeah, Trippier comes in at number 8 for that reason, but it could really easily be Fabian Schär, who's been really good for Newcastle and has scored a lot of goals lately as well. But Trippier is just on another level when it comes to attacking returns compared to Fabian Schär as well. Number 9, we have Malo Gusto. Not too enthused about this pick. I think the top 8 of this draft is looking really good, whether it's Trippier or Schär. Just having that premium Newcastle defender is going to be really nice on top of all the other defenders. Gusto, not 100% sold on, but at the same time, he has 2 double game weeks, Game Week 35 and Game Week 37. Assuming he's healthy to play, he didn't play against Arsenal, so maybe he's going to be out. That could be a deal breaker for Gusto. So that's why he might be a bit too high with number 9 here, but if he's healthy to play, I think for the price, for his attacking returns, potential clean sheets maybe for Chelsea, that's going to be hard to get, but still, I still think I prefer Gusto as the second best Chelsea pick to have currently. And you're going to be surprised by my third, or not having the third Chelsea pick being Jackson because he's not in the team. Spoilers, but yeah, Gusto I think is a really good pick if he's healthy to play. If he's not healthy to play, might have to do some changes in the team in total. It really depends on the injuries here with Trippier, Haaland as well, who's pretty expensive. Could have a lot more money in the bank as well, which would be easier to replace Gusto if I had more money in the banks. But he's so cheap, really attacking if he's ready to play.
and he has 2 double game weeks, so that's why he's in the team. He also has pretty good game week 36 and game week 38 as well, which is in the team. He also has pretty good game week 36 and game week 38 as well, which is pretty nice to have. Number 10, Petrovic is my final Chelsea player. I don't have room for Nicholas Jackson, like I just said. I think Petrovic is just my favorite goalkeeper to have, just because of the 2 double game weeks, pretty good games all in all. I think he's just the best goalkeeper to have. I think he's pretty nailed as the goalkeeper still as well. I think he's a bit better than Sanchez. So yeah, I just think Petrovic is a nice, cheap goalkeeper to have as well. There's not that many good cheap goalkeepers that have double game weeks in 37, and especially not with the fixtures that Petrovic has against Nottingham Forest and Brighton, who are 2 teams that they could potentially get clean sheets against. But yeah, Petrovic, none of the goalkeepers are that good, but I think Petrovic is the best of the bunch, so he comes in at number 10 for that reason, but I'm not entirely enthused about him either. But I do just prefer him as a goalkeeper, and he should probably be ahead of Gusto, but it's just if Gusto is ready to play, he has more attacking threats. So that's what I want to go with here. I want to have attacking defenders that could get points offensively, because clean sheets have been really hard to come by this season. Attacking returns is more the way to go, and that's why I kind of prefer Gusto over Petrovic for that reason. But I think Petrovic is more of a secure player in my team, if that makes sense for you. But yeah, number 9 and number 10, they are my final 2 Chelsea picks. I don't have Nicholas Jackson, and that's because I have a third striker who is going to be João Pedro. He is a player that I quite like, because I could just easily bench him for these next 2 game weeks. I do have a lot of good players these next 2 upcoming game weeks, so I don't really feel the need to have a really good player for those 2 game weeks. But João Pedro is going to be really nice for the double game week in particular. Newcastle and Chelsea, 2 teams that concede a lot of goals usually. Newcastle maybe not so much anymore, but Chelsea especially could be a really good fixture for João Pedro. He's still on penalties for Brighton. He's really cheap, 5.2. So I think with the fixtures that he has in 37 and 38 as well, with Man United at home, him being on penalties and not really that many Brighton attackers that could take minutes away from him, I think it's just a really nice differential and a really nice cheap player to have as a final attacker out of the 8 super good attackers I'm going to have in this squad, basically. So he comes in at number 11. I think he's a really nice underrated pick. And when it comes to Nicholas Jackson, let's just talk about the Nicholas Jackson thing here. He did survive without getting a yellow card in the game week 34 game against Arsenal. Really should have had a yellow card, potentially even a red card, which would have made him a complete no-go when it comes to FPL. But now that Jackson doesn't have a suspension, he's past the suspension tightrope potential. Even if he gets the yellow card next game, he's not going to get a suspension. For that reason, he's pretty good, but at the same time, I've had Darwin now since game 31, and I'm just so sick and tired of Darwin. And I know Nicholas Jackson is not Darwin, but they are basically just the same player. And I don't really know. Darwin Núñez is seen as a really good striker. Nicholas Jackson is sort of seen as a joke, but I don't think there's that much between them, and I don't really want any of them in my team right now. So yeah, I just prefer João Pedro. I think he's a better footballer than Nicholas Jackson. And I just trust him more, and then I can have 2 other different Chelsea players in different positions in Petrovic and Gusto as well on top of that. So Nicholas Jackson, he can haul obviously, but I just think it's another Darwin situation. I just want to avoid that at this point. And I think João Pedro is a really nice candidate to have, who I could easily bench for these 2 game weeks, which is another huge talking point for me, because I really want to play Foden and De Bruyne and Haaland. I don't want to bench any City players for that game week in particular against Nottingham Forest. So yeah, João Pedro is my number 11 pick. Number 12, we have Anthony Gordon from Newcastle. He is number 12, pretty far down compared to last week when I had him number 4. And that's because I'm kind of leaning towards having 2 Newcastle defenders. I do really like Trippier. I do really like Fabian Schär. I might also like Burn. I don't really like that many defenders in general, so I just really like the Newcastle potential defenders there. Sheffield United at home, Burnley away, and a double game week fixture, and then Brentford away in the final game as well. 4 really good game weeks for Newcastle. But Gordon, he has been absolutely amazing at home. He has those 2 home fixtures against Sheffield United and Brighton, where he can get a lot of points, and even against Burnley and Brentford away, and even Man United away, he could also get points. It's not like there's no reason why he shouldn't be good away from home. But so far this season, he's basically had only 2 hauls, I think, away from home, 1 double-digit haul in total away from home, and guess what team that was against? Sheffield United. So playing at home against Sheffield United, who he scored 12 points against last time, I think it's just too big of a thing to give up. So I know Brendan Johnson is a really good pick there. I know Bruno Fernandes is a really good pick as the 5th midfielder. But I think I just need Gordon for this game week. Maybe I sell him after that. Maybe I make room for another Newcastle defender by selling Gordon after this upcoming game week and get someone else for the double game week in 37. I'm going to have some free transfers to use. And I don't really have any planned transfers at this moment in time for game week 37 either. So maybe I sell him after the Sheffield United game. But I think it's just too much upside. He is actually, like, if it wasn't for the double game week, he would actually be
a really good potential captaincy shout for this game week. So yeah, I just really like Gordon for this game week in particular, and he's also a really good player for the rest of the season as well. I think he's going to play most matches, or all, if not all matches. There is that Callum Wilson thing, which might put Isak on the left, but Gordon and Isak have just been so good for Newcastle. I think they're just going to continue playing that way. And now Callum Wilson ease into the team. He's been out for a while now, injured, and we know the injury issues with Callum Wilson. So probably he's going to be a bench option, and Gordon and Isak are going to play every single game. And I just really want both Gordon and Isak for that reason. I do really like Fabian Schär though. That's the other thing. So especially if Trippier is healthy to play, I have that slight doubt about having Gordon in my team just because I want Fabian Schär, Trippier, and Isak. I wish I could have 4 Newcastle players, but yeah, that just can't happen basically. But yeah, Gordon, I think for this game week in particular, I just really, really need him for this game week, I feel like. So he's in for that reason, and it's not the worst thing to have to keep him either for game week 36, 37, 38, because obviously he's going to be a really good pick for those game weeks as well. So he comes in at number 12, probably should be higher in this list, probably should be maybe potentially number 7. But yeah, I really like Gordon, but I also really like other Newcastle players that I might want to have instead of him, and I also like the other midfielders that I could have potentially rather than Gordon as well. So yeah, but Gordon comes in at number 12, could be higher, could be out of the team, but yeah, that's why it's number 12 basically, because it's just hard to decide how much I value Gordon for the next 4 game weeks. But he's a terrific player, obviously. Not if you have him in your team already, no reason to sell him, obviously, especially if you had money tied into him. So yeah, Gordon is a terrific pick at number 12. Number 13, we have Pedro Porro, and I'm also not quite sure about Pedro Porro. Maybe he's one of the transfers that I'm going to book in for game 37. Maybe I sell Pedro Porro and have someone else in defense for this upcoming game week. I don't feel particularly good against Arsenal at home and Chelsea away. And we also have the thing with Pedro Porro, as is the case with Haaland, Foden potentially, and Trippier potentially. They might be out injured. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with Porro? Udogie would have been the easy pick here if he was ready to play, but obviously he's out for the rest of the season, so he's not going to be available for this selection. But yeah, I kind of just feel like I need the Spurs players, at least one more Spurs player for these upcoming game weeks. And Pedro Porro is the best attacking defender for Spurs. I like him, prioritize him over any other Spurs defender because he has that attacking potential at least. I don't think there's going to be many clean sheets. Maybe against Burnley at home in game week 37, maybe against Sheffield United away in game week 38. But I'm not completely sold on him for game week 35 or game week 36, despite him having a double game week. Game 36 as well, not the best game week. I might just go from Porro to Ben White to have 2 Arsenal defenders for these game weeks instead. That is a possibility for me. But I think I just want to have that extra Spurs player for the 2 double game weeks because, yeah, there are more matches to play for Spurs and that should count for something at least. So Pedro Porro, if he's fit to play, could be in my squad, could also be out of the squad. I might decide between him and Ben White. I think that's a pretty interesting decision for me because they're pretty close in price as well. But Pedro Porro is 5.8, Ben White is 6.0, so I could easily make that swap and potentially do Ben White to Porro in game week 37 when he's going to be fully healthy and have those 2 nice fixtures or 2 nice game weeks to end the season. So that might be my strategy, but at the same time, I don't really like to book in transfers either. So for that reason, Pedro Porro is in the squad for now, but he could also drop out. Number 14 is Vicario in goal for Spurs. I don't really like any goalkeepers, but I do quite like Vicario for those final 2 game weeks. I would probably play Petrovic for this upcoming game week rather than Vicario. And then, for the next 2 game weeks, I would play Petrovic. Then I would bench boost in game week 38 most likely. And I would play Vicario in game week 37. Or I would bench boost in game week 37, and then I would play Vicario probably in game week 38. So I think Petrovic and Vicario is the best rotation pair in goalkeeper positions, especially if you're bench boosting in 37. So that's why I'm picking Vicario, but I don't really feel good about any goalkeeper at this point. But yeah, this draft I don't have Brennan Johnson in, so I do have that extra Spurs spot. And also if I sell Pedro Porro, I also have that extra Spurs spot for Vicario. So yeah, I just think I'm going to have him for game week 37 and game week 38 in particular. That's why I have him in the squad, but he is quite more expensive than other goalkeepers as well. But most double game week goalkeepers are this expensive, so yeah. Just sort of have to pick someone pretty expensive in goal, and then I think Vicario is the best player, especially for those 2 final game weeks, so he comes in at number 14. Number 15, we have Jared Branthwaite, another player with just a single game week all around the board, but he does have really good fixtures at least. Brentford at home, Luton away, Sheffield United at home. Everton have shown in easier games, especially at Goodison Park this season, that they could get some clean sheets. They just did that against Nottingham Forest as well, so I do quite like Branthwaite for that reason. He's a nice stopgap player to have for these game weeks. Against Sheffield United at home in game 37 as well. If I have to bench boost with him in the team, that's not the end of the world. And I could also do the transfer and bring in someone with a double game week, someone like Van Hecke, for example, in game week 37 for Branthwaite if I need that for those 2 final game weeks. But yeah, I also had Diogo Dalot as my final player for a while in this team. Or right before I made this video, basically, I swapped from Dalot to Branthwaite. Like I said, with the other defenders, I really like attacking defenders, and Dalot is a player that could get offensive returns, attacking returns. But Man United just don't have the good fixtures that I want, and they don't have the good form either, conceding 3 goals against Coventry in like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever happened. They're just not in a good moment currently. So even though they have a double game week, I don't have a single Man United player in this squad. Which is kind of crazy, I guess. I could have Onana, I could have Dalot, I could have Bruno Fernandes, I could have Garnacho potentially if he's more set to play. But I just can't really, I'm not 100% sold on any of them, to be honest. Maybe Bruno Fernandes, but at the same time, I just really like all my midfielders. It's going to be really hard to fit in Bruno Fernandes over Gordon, and I don't think I want that either for this game week. So yeah, for now, no Man United players, but could have either Onana, Dalot, or Fernandes. But probably not all 3 at the same time. Because I don't really like Man United that much going forward. So that's pretty much the whole team. But you can see there are Vicario, Trippier, Pedro Porro, De Bruyne, and João Pedro, new players from last game week and the last weekly wildcard draft. And the last weekly wildcard draft was a bit different because that was in a double game week, so I had to make some changes. I needed to have some players that had a double game week game 34 as well as having a double game week game 37. Sort of the best of both worlds is what I had to do last week on the wildcard draft. Now I don't have that issue. I just have one double game week to consider, basically, apart from the double that Chelsea and Spurs have, and I do have triple Spurs and triple Chelsea. Obviously, I'm going to play five out of those players because I have 2 goalkeepers from those teams. But I do have that game week 35 game week covered as well. But yeah, made some changes from last week, obviously, because I had a double game week 34 to think about last game week. If I was the wildcard last game week, I don't have to think about that anymore, and that's the biggest reason for all these players that I'm going to show you now dropping out, basically. So we have 5 players in red here on right above me here, and those are the players that have dropped out since last time. Cunha obviously was injured. I would have changed that before the game week if I had made another wildcard video before the game week started, because there were news on Friday, obviously, that Cunha was not ready to play. I really like Cunha for last game week, if he was able to play those 2 game weeks, or those 2 fixtures in game week 34, and also the nice fixture against Luton in game week 35. But the injury obviously set a stop to that, and I think Wolves in general, they just have that nice game week 35 fixture, but then after that, you could just sell them, basically, if you have them in your team. And the same goes for Aït-Nouri. Has a good game week 35 fixture, but after that, not so much, especially now that Brentford looked really good in this past game. They don't really have the best fixtures left, so both Cunha and Aït-Nouri drop out for that reason. Salah has also dropped out. He has West Ham in the next game, so that makes me actually slightly tempted to have Salah, but that would mean that I would have to drop De Bruyne, and then that would mean that I would book in another transfer for Salah to De Bruyne in game week 37, and I don't really want to do that either, especially as I can see De Bruyne get some points against Nottingham Forest away as well. So Salah drops out. Obviously had high hopes for him the past few game weeks, had him as captain for the past 4 or 5 game weeks. Has not worked out for me at all. I was expected to see more from Salah, being so close to being the top scorer in the Premier League and being so close to ending his Liverpool career. It could happen in the summer, so really disappointed with Salah lately, but I have a strange and bad feeling about him punishing me against my favorite team, West Ham, in game week 35. And that's why I'm still considering him slightly, but I think I've settled on De Bruyne at this point, and I can't really afford Salah on top of having Foden, Son, Haaland, Isak, all these expensive players, Trippier, Pedro Porro. I can't afford Salah, so yeah, he's dropped out as well. Dan Burn is another player that I'm really considering. I might just have him rather than Branthwaite or Pedro Porro, but that would obviously mean that I have to drop a Newcastle player, and that would probably be Gordon. So I'm not too happy about doing that either. Could be Burn rather than Trippier as well to give me more money to spend elsewhere in the team. That could be something that I do. So Burn is definitely in my potential plans, but as of now, he's not in the team because I just prefer Trippier and Fabian Schär for that attacking potential that they might have over Burn, despite the price difference. And then in goal, Henderson obviously had a double game week game 34. Hasn't really worked out for him so far. He has scored that own goal, has -1 from the first game. And then he faces Newcastle, so he wasn't the best pick either last week. And Vicario comes in with a double game week game 37 and that fixture against Sheffield United in game week 38, basically. So those are the guys that have dropped out. And that is my team. That is the wildcard draft for now, at least. I'm going to update this in my team section video on Game Week on Friday, basically, before Game Week 35. With an updated squad, I am still tinkering around with this whole team. Obviously, changing one player can change the whole dynamic of the whole team, because you have several triple ups here. You have triple up with Man City, triple up with Chelsea, triple up with Spurs, triple up with Newcastle. 4 teams triple up on, basically. So if I change one of those players, that's going to make room for another player from that same team. So a lot of things could change. I could get Jackson in for João Pedro. I'm still not completely off of that idea. Maybe I do that. But obviously I would have to drop one of the Chelsea players, and that would have several ramifications for the rest of the draft, basically, for this upcoming game week. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to talk more about this obviously on Friday, but I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this channel. I hope you subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.